Why is corporate media almost completely silent about the issue of Donald Trump's health? With very few exceptions, we have seen now several days Trump is missing, essentially vanished, the most media obsessed president. And until the pressure got so big in the online and independent ecosystem, corporate media wasn't even talking about it. Trump has been going through these longer periods with no sit down interviews and no public events, just a couple of rambling posts on Truth Social and a blurry golf course photo. And given the growing evidence of actual health problems, swollen ankles and bruised hands and moments of confusion, you would think that this would be a major story for corporate media. But you look at the New York Times, you look at the Washington Post, obviously on Fox News, or you look at CNN, and it is deafening silence on the issue. When Biden turned a poor debate performance into the biggest adjudication of whether he could do the job, it was headlines, it was a feeding frenzy in corporate media, endless loops of him stumbling over words and opinion columns speculating about which of 30 different medical conditions might he have had, books written about how the press failed and Democrats failed, and the coverage of his medical situation became a story in and of itself. But with Donald Trump, it's almost like the opposite is happening. It's kind of weird. Clear evidence. And despite the fact that Trump is now older than Biden was at the height of that coverage, mainstream newsrooms are just kind of not talking about the story. The main contribution we sometimes see is Trump's alive. He's doing stuff. The rumors of his death are premature. Part of this, I believe, is an institutional fear, because for years the right has been hammering mainstream outlets with accusations that they are biased. The New York Times is biased. The Washington Post is biased. CNN is biased. Times biased. Newsweek's biased. Everybody's biased. And so to some degree, that has worked. And you got to hand it to them. They've done it effectively because they have made a lot of these corporate and legacy media outlets second guess. Do we want to talk about this? Because what's the backlash going to be? And it's terrible for a free press, but it's good if what you're trying to do is suppress stories like that. Reporters know if they run a tough story on Trump's health, they're going to be accused of fake news. Their editors will probably say, maybe don't cover this. And so to avoid that, they swing completely the other direction. They underreport the story. They bury the lead. They try to look cautious. And the result is really its own kind of bias, which is bias by omission. When the most powerful man in the world disappears for 5 days, something he had never done before, that's news. And when he at the same time has health problems that are visible but aren't being explained, pretending otherwise doesn't show neutrality. It shows that you're submitting. And it's not as if no one is covering it, right? I mean, independent outlets, progressive podcasts, YouTube channels, medical shows, newsletters, smaller investigative sites. Everybody's raising questions about Donald Trump's health. They've been doing it for months, if not years. Side-by-side comparisons of how Trump's gait has changed, his verbal slips, interviews with medical professionals, analyses of how Donald Trump's language and vocabulary have become dramatically simplified over the years. The difference is reach, because a lot of these independent voices just don't have the platforms of some of the legacy and corporate media. And because the big outlets leave a vacuum, you've got speculation and conspiracy theories that fill the void, whether it's rumors of stroke, J.D. Vance's claims that the press is lying by even talking about Donald Trump being missing for 5 or 6 days. So this is really not a story about Trump, although in a sense it is. This is a story about the role of the press. American history is sadly filled with examples of White Houses hiding presidential health crises. Woodrow Wilson's stroke, JFK's Addison's disease, Reagan's Alzheimer's, and the press would either get stonewalled or they would look the other way. The public was misled every time. So we could ask the question, is Trump healthy? I think we know the answer to that. The real question is, why isn't the press doing its job? If the mainstream media can turn Biden's hoarse voice into a national obsession, but they take Trump's days-long disappearance and look the other way like there's nothing to see here, that is an extraordinary skewing of corporate and legacy journalism. If we have a healthy democracy, we need transparency from our leaders. Trump promised that transparency, and on a whole litany of issues, but pointedly on his health, we haven't gotten it. Independent media is trying to do the work. Corporate media, by and large, is not. There is an exception. Ali Velshi on MSNBC did do a good segment about this. We'll talk about that tomorrow.